So we're not on strike, but if you walk around with a sign that says just practicing and you get a whole group of people to do it and start chanting, it sure looks like a strike. When these UPS managers look out their windows and they see, 100, 200 of their workers in the parking lot holding signs, I think it's really going to make them realize that they can't do this without us. We're the people that make everything run at that company, and we're the people that do all the work at that company.
Welcome to Fight Back Radio, a production of fightbacknews.org, taking you to the heart of the people's struggle. I'm your host, Richard Berg, and we got a great show again today. There is, you may have heard, a battle brewing between the United Parcel Service and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and our guest today is Tanner, who is president of Local 90 of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters in Des Moines, Iowa. And so I think you'll enjoy the episode today. And it's a fight for workers' rights, for democratic rights, for standard of living, all the things that Fight Back Radio embraces, I think, come together in this battle with the Teamsters. And so I think you'll enjoy this interview. Tanner Fischer is an excellent guest, and I think you'll be hearing a lot from him as time goes forward. He's a current leader of the Teamsters, but I think he has a future in this union too. That you're going to hear that name more and more. Before I get into the interview, though, I want to go on one of my occasional rants because I am angry at the United States Supreme Court, as many of our Fight Back Radio listeners are, no doubt as well. But they continue to cross the line. I mean, this majority on the court now, this extreme right-wing majority, has recently, they said affirmative action it was outlawed for admissions into universities. But of course, you can, if you're a billionaire or whatever, your kids graduated from these universities, they can use just whatever genetics or lineage, but not take into consideration the fact of how black or brown people have been treated, or women historically. So this attack on affirmative action is just the most recent attack on the working class and our children and grandchildren's ability to attend universities. But it's not just this. I mean, it's like there was an attack recently on LGBTQ. It says, we can treat them like dirt or exclude them because that's free speech. And if my religion says I should be able to treat people unequally, I can throw equal rights out the window. There've been attacks on voting rights. That's not recent, but it's disgusting as well. And it takes away, all these things erode at our democracy. There's been attacks on union rights where now the Supreme Court says, if we attack, if workers fight back and have some success, then, the company can sue the union. Most notably, people that have heard our last episode with Haley McNeil, the attack on women's rights with the landmark decision, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, the Dobbs decision, which was a year ago, is stunning, and it's as I said, it's an attack on women and reproductive rights across the country, and we need to stand together with our sisters and everybody to make sure that this doesn't happen. So thank you for indulging that rant, but I want to let people know our guest Tanner Fischer. I think you'll hear that he really lays out what it's like to be a worker at UPS, which he was before he became the president, and some of the conditions that exist in Iowa are the same as they exist all over the country, because UPS replicates their level and methods of exploitation over and over again. I want to also point out our friends at the Freedom Road Socialist Organization are going to be having an online forum next weekend. So that'll be the weekend of the 15th or 16th, where they're going to have working class fighters from UPS talking about the struggle there. So it's a good follow up and update from what you'll hear today from Tanner Fischer. And we'll put in the show notes how you can find that. So with no further ado, here's Tanner Fischer. Okay, so I'm here with Teamsters Local 90 President Tanner Fischer, and we're going to be talking a little bit about United Parcel Service and the fight that the Teamsters have there, but also more generally some of the things going on in the Teamsters. So welcome to Fight Back Radio, Tanner.
Hey, thanks for having me, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and we're honored to have you. So first, let's get a little background about you. So you're the president of Local 90, which is the number 2 position. The principal officer is the secretary treasurer, but you were newly elected there, and Local 90's in Iowa. Am I right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Our office is in Des Moines, Iowa. We represent 19 counties of Iowa, and 2 shops that are actually outside of our jurisdiction as well.
Okay, sounds good. So, tell me a little bit about your background. So how did you come to become a Teamster in the first place? Are you from Iowa? Give our listeners a little bit about who Tanner Fischer is.
Yeah, I grew up in Ankeny, Iowa. I moved around a little bit. I lived in the south side of Des Moines, the east side of Des Moines. I live in Bondurant now, but I started at United Parcel Service in 2015. I was fresh out of high school, and I was just trying to find a way to help pay for community college. And they had a little reimbursement thing going. I heard it over the radio, and I started working there. And at the time, college didn't work out, so I just kept the night job. And then I just got a day job in addition to it, and was trying to make as much money as possible. And certainly the part-time job at UPS couldn't make ends meet, so I always had to have a full-time gig. So from working, I worked at a Red Bull distributor for a while. I tried self-employment for a while. I was a CW with the IBEW for a little bit. It's a electrician's helper, basically. And then when I had that job, I finally got the opportunity to go full-time, and I took the driver job at UPS.
Well, let's go back to for our Fight Back Radio listeners who don't work at UPS or never have, and actually a lot of people have worked at UPS over the years, the way they go through part-timers. But can you tell people the part-time job in the warehouse? What is that job? What were you doing there? What do others do in there? And I know I'm a former Teamster, not at UPS, but I've been in contact with it. It's a backbreaking job. It's not just sitting around most of the time. So could you give us a little bit of a taste of that?
Yeah, there is basically no sitting around at any job at UPS. They find a way to maximize the amount of work you can do at any given time. I think it's the part-time jobs. We kind of call them it's full-time work and part-time hours. So you're doing what would be the full-time work if they actually spread it out to make it reasonable, but you do it in such a small amount of time. But yeah, the part-time job I started with was loading. Here, we don't acknowledge their production standard, but I believe the number, if you're going to hit their perfect metrics, is 350 boxes per hour. And these boxes weigh anywhere from 1 to 150 pounds.
Oh, my Lord.
You're moving tons and tons and tons of weight every single night. And it's backbreaking. And you get a tiny 10-minute break that is absolutely not enough. And you're working in a 52-foot trailer off the side of a dock. So it can be anywhere from, you're seeing your breath in the trailer, it's freezing cold, to it's, sweltering heat and there's no air conditioning. And it wasn't irregular to see people go down from heat injuries. And, I've seen people haul out of there with ambulances before. But I started loading, and then I went to unload, which is just the exact opposite of loading. You're just, hauling all the boxes out of the trailers. And then, I've done sorting, smalls, basically almost every job there except for the tram drivers. Those are really high senior people get those.
Okay. So, I remember a Teamster official telling me years back they were arguing with the company across the table for more full-time jobs. And the company guy said, along the lines of what you were just talking about, well, we can't have these guys work full-time. They're too tired after the few hours that they work, they couldn't be productive for that whole time. And they had, as you said, they have, they've done a science, they've really made it a science of figuring out how to use every minute that you're on the clock to squeeze everything they can out of you for their own profits, et cetera. So so you worked as a part-timer, and then from there you went on, you became a package car driver, one of those boxy trucks we see the guys in brown delivering in all the time.
Yes. Yep. That was, I qualified. It was middle of winter. It was probably the most stressful 30 days of my life.
So that's the probationary period?
Yeah. Okay. It was, ice storms and everything else. And, if you so much as scratch the truck, you're fired, you're back in the warehouse. And I kind of went all in. I turned down the electrician opportunity to take the job. So I was, I was all in, and I was incredibly stressed and, probably running and breaking rules just to try to get the job. And when that was finally over, I got the job, and, I started working safe again, but it was an incredibly stressful time. But every driver goes through that, and every driver can kind of relate to each other, like with their qualification period.
Yeah, and it's the same, everywhere in the country. It's like I'm here in Chicago. The stories, and I ran for my Fight Back Radio listeners. They know I'm a member of the Chicago Teachers Union, but for years, over 20 years, I was a member of the Teamsters, and I ran for international vice president, and we campaigned throughout the central region, which and I learned that the most rural part of Iowa or Missouri operates almost exactly the same as downtown Chicago or any major metropolitan area. They've studied how to get the most out of people, and they do. And so, but okay, so. You became a package car driver. Tell us a little bit. What's it like to be a package car driver? What's that job?
Well, I thought it'd be a little bit more freeing than in the warehouse. I feel like the company's kind of found a way to scientifically exploit people. Like they, there's always a number, there's a metric, and there's, for every single part of it. And I kind of thought that'd be less in package naively, coming from inside the warehouse. I'm like, well, they can't see me as often because I'm not there. Well, there's 100 sensors in your truck that know how often you have your seatbelt on, what speed you were backing up, and they track all that information, and they come after you with a lot of it. And but it's, all in all, I love being a package car driver. I liked being outside. I liked my customers. The parts that were awful were like the over supervision of the company coming in and saying, why did you do this? Why did you do this? You backed 11 times yesterday. You should only back 7 times. Well, did you, were you out there with me? Did you see the, tree falling over the road that, made me do a 10-point turn? So there's a lot of, it gets a little bit ridiculous with some of the stuff they try to track you on.
Yeah. And it's assumed that if you're tired, you need to rest for 2 minutes, that's a bad thing,
Yeah. So. They like to call that stealing time a lot of times.
Yeah. Stealing time. Yes. Like it's theirs to start out with instead of yours. So we're in a battle right now with UPS. The Teamsters are, and tell us a little bit about So this involves hundreds of thousands of Teamsters. Can you tell us a little bit about what does the Teamsters represent at UPS, and who is UPS? People know the brown trucks and that they see, and but how does tell us a little bit more about this company if you could.
Yeah, so the Teamsters represent all the hourly workers at UPS, from the people who load the boxes in the truck to begin with, to the semi driver that drives, that moves it from Iowa to Chicago, to the person who then unloads it, to the package car driver who drops it off on your front doorstep. So every single part of it is unionized. Even the revenue recovery people who are weighing boxes, those are unionized people. And this contract fight, really, I think it goes back to 2018. We had a pretty awful deal that was kind of forced upon us with this 2/3 rule, where the union officials could essentially force a deal on people regardless of us voting it down by 57%. So ever since that deal, people have been kind of, we felt like we've been wronged a little bit. So,
well, let's go back to that a little bit here. So at that time there was different national leaders in UPS, and in fact there was different local leaders in Local 90 at that time as well. So the union leadership, at least, if not the membership, looked very different at that time. And so why don't you walk us through us? You were you were a package car driver then, or a warehouse worker, and then tell us what the issues were and how that fight actually broke down.
Yeah, so there was the 22-4 was one of the main issues, and what a 22-4 is it's supposed to be a combo warehouse and like part-time. It's be half the job would be warehouse, the other half would be driving. We had a pretty good idea that that's not how it would go. But the justification is for having the job and paying it less was, well, they'll only be in the warehouse half the time. They'll only be driving half the time. So we'll pay them $10 an hour less at the top rate, and that'll be fine. Well, that wasn't fine to, I think, 57% of the people who voted on the contract, myself included. But
so one of the main issues then was this 2 tiers. So you get drivers that are doing the same work on different wage scales. One's making, what you said, $10 an hour less. So it's real money. And so so the company and apparently the union officials said, oh, well, that's fine because it's actually will create more full-time jobs or something like that. And but the workers saw it for what it was, is a wage cut. Am I right?
Yeah, that's absolutely what it was. And it's to date, I don't think any of our 22-4s locally here have ever been used as intended, with part warehouse, part driving. They are just drivers and they don't have overtime protections. So they're the ones that are working till 9, 10, sometimes 11 o'clock at night. And, there's no overtime protections whatsoever like a normal package car driver has. So they really get the worst part of everything. And it's a job where if one of those jobs came open, I'm not sure why you would bid it, because there really isn't any advantage to being a 22-4 versus an 0300, which is what we call a regular package car driver. Besides the 22-4s, one of the other major issues that really didn't become apparent for the last few years, there was an agreement in that last contract where the company would create 2,000 new sleeper team jobs. And these are the highest paying jobs at UPS. So I think, the union probably took that as being a pretty good deal, but there was a caveat to it. And the caveat was the company, once they hit that 2,000 number, could lay off any feeder drivers who are our semi drivers. They could lay off anyone who was hired after 2018. So early in the contract, it wasn't that big of a deal because they hadn't hit the number yet and there wasn't that many people. But as we get later in the contract, they hit that number at some point last year. And now we have feeder drivers who are laid off, and we have contractors coming in, taking our work, driving down our standards. And it's just maddening. I mean, it's absolutely infuriating to see, your brothers and sisters laid off at home while we have a contractor who just, scabs just taking our work.
So these two things taken together, excuse me, whatever, the 22-4 issue is a huge loss in wages for work. People are working very hard and doing the same work as others. And then this subcontracting, not only undercuts union power, but also it has people doing the same work again for much lower wages. So it's reducing, our standard of living of working people. But it's the result for UPS is, I'm guessing, and I guess I'll ask this as a question, their profits have been pretty good through this time, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last year alone, they profited $13 billion. They did $8 billion in stock buybacks and had a revenue of around $100 billion, which is the highest in company history. So
wow.
They're doing just fine. I mean, I guess it turns out that scientifically exploiting people is quite profitable.
Yeah. And so, wow. Okay. So, okay, let's go back to 2018 then, though. So this was a game changer in terms of waking up the rank and file workers, so that it was Jimmy Hoffa, the son of the infamous Jimmy Hoffa, was the president of the National Union, and you mentioned that 57% of the membership voted down. Am I right about that number?
That number is really close. I think it's like 56 or 57. It's been a couple years since 2018. It's not on the top of my.
Yeah, but it's a solid majority voted down the contract. Yet they implemented it anyways. So how could they do that? How's that possible?
So the Teamsters Constitution used to have a 2/3 rule, where if 2/3 of the membership in a bargaining unit didn't vote a contract down, the national leadership could implement it anyways. And really what that did is just takes the sails out of any sort of vote no campaign or any sort of activist trying to demand more. And that's exactly what it did. I mean, I remember I was working in the small sort, which is another like UPS term, but it's the smaller packages. We'd load them into bags. I had a shoulder injury at the time after a car accident, but I was working in the small sort. And I remember we got like an update that like the contract had been voted down. And I was like, wow, we might actually go on strike. We might actually do something. And then the next day, I believe it was, the union was like, nope, the contract's implemented. Here you go.
Oh,
and
my
I just
God.
No, in 2018, I would have been driving at the time. That would have been with the, sorry, I get the years messed up. That would have been with the Zuckerman election prior to that. That's when I was in Smalls.
Okay.
But still quite frustrating, though.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. So it's, but this had an effect, as I said, on the rank and file, because not only did they negotiate a bad contract, people woke up enough to vote it down. And then when they used this trick rule from the Constitution to implement something that people didn't want, you guys kicked into gear. I mean, you guys, there was an election. Hoffa probably saw the writing on the wall because he retired, but the people he selected to replace him got trounced. Can you talk a little bit about the aftermath of the 2018 and what that looked like in Iowa or even nationally as this coalition came together, which led by Sean O'Brien and Fred Zuckerman, who were the O'Brien Zuckerman or the Oz slate. Think what people called it. But could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So shortly after that contract in 2018, I went to my first TDU convention in Chicago. It's Teamsters for a Democratic Union is what it's like the reform movement within inside the Teamsters. So I went to my first convention and I was pretty disheartened by what happened with that contract. But getting into a room full of people, I don't know how many people were there. I'm going to say it was 500. It felt like a ton of people. And everyone felt the exact same way. And I'm like, oh, wow, we have something of a movement here. There's a lot of people that are mad. And I had a really good former steward brought me with and kind of got me like radicalized into, hey, we can actually fight our own leadership too if they're not good enough. So that was kind of the beginning of finding someone to run against Hoffa, and it ended up being O'Brien, ended up being Zuckerman. They built a coalition with TDU, and then UPS wise, there was not very much support at all for Hoffa. I don't know who, at least locally, there's no vocal supporters for him after what happened with that contract. So basically campaigning for change was fairly easy for those guys because no one wants to get screwed and feel like their voice doesn't matter.
Well, at UPS, it's probably it's even the national president has a big role because you have a national agreement. All the UPS workers in the entire United States are under the same contract, or there's supplements, but the same master agreement, so people could see it probably more easily. But I'm going to ask you a little bit more about Teamsters for a Democratic Union. This is a caucus that's been around since the 1970s. I was a member of it when I was actually I still am a member as a retiree. But this is a group of people that basically the fighters, the militants, I think tend to gravitate towards this caucus. And could you said your steward brought you there. Could you tell us a little bit about what TDU is and a little more and how they approached the elections, the most recent international elections?
Yeah, so like TDUs, like it's the reform group of the reform caucus of the Teamsters. They have pretty much been on the right side of most Teamster issue for, I mean, at least as long as I know. They're part of the reason why we have the right to vote in national elections. Ron Kerry being the first one. The steward who brought me there, great guy, Todd Hartzell. He ran for our local back in the '90s, and he ran for the president spot. And he was actually a rank and file president because I wouldn't hire him on as a business agent during the '97 strike. So, and he was a TDU activist, and they didn't want to have rabble rousing, militant at the helm of anything. So he was a rank and file president, and he's a pretty good inspiration for kind of where I'm at today. But they're big on the vote no movement. Like they were the 2018 vote no movement. That was a TDU back thing. And then the O'Brien election, they were, I helped campaign for O'Brien, all the text banking, phone banking that was going on for him. That was, TDU ran a lot of that, and they helped tremendously with our election as well.
Well, let's talk about the campaigning for O'Brien Zuckerman in Iowa. So you were texting, you were no doubt before work talking to people in the break room and whatever, passing out flyers. I'm not sure what you all did, but maybe you can tell me a little bit about that. What I'm interested in is the conversations you had with people. You're right. UPS voted overwhelmingly against Hoffa and for the O'Brien Zuckerman slate. But how did that happen? I'm sure people had questions. Who is this guy? Whatever. And O'Brien's not a member of TDU as far as I know. And so how did it play out in Iowa with you just talking to your coworkers?
Yeah, so a lot of those conversations with talking about O'Brien, he was on the National Negotiating Committee during the 2018 contract and was fired because he didn't want to do didn't want the 22-4, and he was thrown off the negotiating committee. So that's a pretty good talking point to talk about when you're talking to 22-4s who are getting worked to death. Like, hey, this should have never happened, and this is the guy who didn't want it to happen. So why don't we give him a chance? So that was a pretty solid talking point. And then just a lot of leafleting, and that was pretty much it. Just one-on-ones and leafleting. But that was, I think he had a pretty solid turnout. And
it was pretty much direct to the point. We were sold out. This guy was on the other side. It was just a blunt talk and letting people know, look, because they knew from their own experiences that they were sold out. But that just say, look, this guy was on our side against it, and we're supporting him because of that. Is that right? Or? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. And there was I can't remember anyone being like, no, Hoffa's the guy. I don't think I had a single person tell me that. Like, oh no, actually, I think we should, vote for Jimmy Hoffa's people. He did as well. Like, I don't remember a single conversation supportive of Jimmy Hoffa.
So, so then the whole idea of electing this new reform slate and coalition, I guess that you would say, because there were people on it that were, had been with Hoffa at one times in their careers, but they were led to break. And then the other end of the spectrum being TDU and the radicals or the militants like you who were fighters from day one. But so this gave a space, I think, and as so often, we elect people, whether it's to elected, to government office or whatever, that they don't, the talk is good, but the walk isn't. But the idea was that O'Brien Zuckerman would give you more space to fight and to really unleash the real power, which is the workers, the people that do all the work at UPS. Has that been the case? How has it looked since Sean O'Brien became the president of the Teamsters?
I think, I think he's done a pretty great job of that. There's rolling practice pickets going on right now across the country at every UPS facility. We had two this week. We had two last week. We're continue to have more and more practice pickets, just mobilizing members, trying to kind of scare the company a little bit about what could happen on August 1st they can't make a deal. But that's something that would have never happened under Hoffa. I mean, the contracts were always negotiated like a year early, and it's like O'Brien waiting to start negotiating and applying pressure and actually using every sort of leverage that we have. It's something that I definitely haven't seen ever. So it's been really refreshing to see.
So can you tell our listeners what practice picketing is?
So we're not on strike, but if you walk around with a sign that says just practicing and you get a whole group of people to do it and start chanting, it sure looks like a strike. But it really what it does is when these UPS managers look out their windows and they see, 100, 200 of their workers in the parking lot holding signs, getting ready to picket, practice picketing, they start, making phone calls and they're like, oh my God, they're doing it here and they're doing it here. And we're all doing it all across the country. And I think it's really going to make them realize that they can't do this without us. We're the people that make everything run at that company. And we're the people that do all the work of that company. So we need to get rewarded for it.
That's fabulous. And no doubt it also, build as an escalating tactic, it builds confidence in the rank and file as well that we can actually get this done. Can you talk a little bit about the practice picketing in Iowa and Local 90 and, how you went about organizing it and telling people that this was important, or what were the conversations you had with your stewards and your members about practice picketing? And then how's it went? Did you get it? Did anybody turn out, or were you the only guy there?
It's just me. No, I'm just kidding. I talk really loudly, so we're fine. No, we kind of set up a little blast text thing. We sent it out to everybody, got some information out to stewards, and then we had a couple people we selected to be speakers, just to talk about the conditions of part-time workers or the conditions of package car driver, that sort of thing. And then we invited out a bunch of people from the community. We had a state senator out there. We had steel workers, IBEW people, like every single news channel in Des Moines, like 5, 8, and 13 was there. And we ended up having about 200 people out there in the pouring rain. And
so you picked a day with the rain.
If we're setting up in the parking lot and we're setting up outside, it's going to be raining or it's going to be cold or it's going to be way too hot. That's just the way it works. But today was rainy, or that day was rainy. But getting 200 people to go stand in the rain and talk about their working conditions and practice picket, that's such a powerful image for the company to see, for the news to see, for anyone to see. Like, no one wants to stand in the rain and get wet, but all these people did because everyone is fed up and everyone's ready to fight.
And then you mentioned you had people from the community and other unions showing solidarity. I think that's important. I mean, they see your fight as their fight and the other way around. And so, can you talk a little bit about, outreach to the community and why you think that that's important?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our fight is their fight. And I would love to have a ton of community members out on our picket lines if we have them. That was instrumental in the John Deere strike. The whole community kind of got behind them. I remember that year. There was the John Deere strike and the Kellogg strike were the two big ones around here. And that year, for Christmas, I had family members saying, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, go on their Strike Fund website and order these people's kids Christmas presents, because that's what I want. Let's go get these people's kids some Christmas presents. Let's have the whole community try to back them. And it was good for their fight, and I know it'd be good for ours. We actually have reached out to the UAW people with John Deere, and we got some pretty solid strike tips from them on what to do. They had a really successful picket line. They were doing some really awesome things. So they're going to be a great resource to us, and I hope we can help them with anything in the future as well.
Well, let me circle back to the bargaining table at UP, with the United Parcel Service and the Teamsters. So, all of this, motion since the election of Sean O'Brien and, unleashing of the rank and file members and the activity across the country has had an effect. I mean, there's a number of tentative agreements or TAs that have already been reached. Could you talk a little bit about what has been accomplished at the table, what victories have been reached already?
Yeah, the 22-4, the two-tier wage system is gone. Beating two-tier wages is it's incredible. I mean, it's a massive win that can't be understated. It's really awesome that that's gone. The forced 6-day punch. Some supplements don't have it. Some parts of the country don't have it. The Central region, and especially here, I mean, here in Des Moines, I can really speak to it. We have a lot of drivers that are working 6 days a week, and definitely we don't have sick days. So you're just showing up to work Monday through Saturday. If you call in on your day off, you're getting written up for it. And people
so you get wrote up if you call in on your day off.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's I've sat in on way too many of those hearings, and it's just like it hurts my brain every time I think about it. I'm like, it's his day off. How could he be in trouble? But unfortunately, that's the way it's been in the Central region since this last contract, really, especially since 2020. And we've lost a lot of really good workers because of that, because they just can't do it anymore. I mean, it breaks down your family life. It breaks down your body. You can't be moving. My package car, I'd go out with 500-600 boxes and 150 stops, and you're talking, probably 10,000 pounds in weight you're delivering a day, up and down stairs. Do that 6 days a week. Do that for 3 years straight. Your body starts to break down. Everything hurts. So getting rid of that forced 6-day punch is a massive victory. I had people between the 22-4 and the forced 6-day punch. I had people call me like almost crying, because it's like I can have a life again. I'm not a second-class citizen of the company I work for. I can have a life again, and it's awesome. The air conditioning, that's a huge one that I almost didn't think we had a chance at winning. It's always been something that, like, I'd love to have air conditioning in a package car, but it didn't seem like something that was attainable. And I think through rank and file pressure, and honestly, a lot of the media campaign, with people seeing drivers fall, and pass out on Ring doorbells. And, even we had that driver out in California who passed away last year, heat stroke too. I believe he was 24 years old. And they just, between all these different pressure points, the company caved, and all new package cars starting in 2024 will have air conditioning.
I saw also that you got a new holiday as well. Am I correct? Martin Luther King's birthday. So that's it's not enough, but it's a tip of the hat to the black community and black drivers and warehouse workers especially. So it sounds like you won. What are you guys still out there picketing and getting ready to go on strike for?
So I said we beat 2-tier, but we truly haven't beaten 2-tier yet. Part-time workers are paid significantly less than drivers. They're not even paid really. Like, they're paid poverty wages. I mean, $16.65 is their contractual rate right now per hour. And with a 3.5-hour guarantee, take out taxes, you might make $40 a night. Not even. I mean, you're probably not even making $40 a night. So I did a little, I was talking to a bunch of part-time workers at one of our last rallies we had. And I was like, hey, how much was your check last week? And I made $200 last week. I made $180 last week. Like, oh my God, that's not enough to live off of. You can't put gas in your car for, $180. It just doesn't work. You're not feeding yourself. You can't pay rent. I mean, every one of those people has to work a second job, and it's ridiculous.
Well, this was your experience too. I mean, you know this firsthand. Even you're the president of the local now, but you were a driver, and before that, you were a part-time worker, and you told us in the introductions here that about that you had a number of part-time jobs that had to get you by as well. And in fact, I remember we've mentioned in passing the 1997 strike at UPS, which was the last time there was a strike there, when Ron Carey was the president, who was a militant as well. And that was the issue there too. I mean, the slogan was, part-time America just won't work. And there was a whole, it had a national impact in that the trend in the country then was to try to create more part-time, jobs that had less benefits or whatever, and, worse situations. And and that was successful, I thought, in my view. But there's a challenge, and one that I think you're facing now. How do you get full-time workers who are thrilled right now because of the victories you've won and have become public at the negotiating table to support these part-time workers? Why should if I have a view, if I don't have a class consciousness or a view of solidarity. I'm out there saying, hey, I got mine. Screw those guys. So how do you get past that and try to get, probably the most stable, most senior people at UPS to support part-time workers?
I guess number one, you got to just explain that's not how solidarity works. I mean, we only have what we have because we've stuck together to fight for it. And a lot of people have started in the warehouse. So reminding them of the times, when they were in the warehouse, like, didn't you want better conditions? Didn't you think you deserved more money? And especially really high senior people that started back in, the 70s and 80s, when they started and it was $8 an hour. Well, you adjust that for inflation, and it's basically where our demands are today with the 25 an hour. So if you just, maybe $8 an hour was good back then. I mean, I started at $10 an hour in 2015 and my first check was $80. I mean, like, just truly not enough money to live off of. So trying to convince people to kind of come together. We see our loaders every day. I've known part-timers that are homeless working there, and it's like, there shouldn't be a company that's this rich that has like homeless workers to the degree that UPS does. So just trying to really get in everyone's head that this is all of our fight, and 60% of our workforce is part-time. It's time that we take care of them.
And so, what's the response that you're getting? Are people, are drivers going to, if you guys, I shouldn't say if, you already have, you've said we're going to strike on August 1st if we don't have a contract. That's what the President O'Brien said, and that's, what I hear from you as well. Are the full-time workers going to support them?
Yeah, so far, overwhelmingly, everyone's kind of on the same page, at least locally, to support them. Everyone I've talked to has been kind of, they got theirs. It's time that everyone gets a little bit of the pie here. Okay.
So, and I think we have to continue projecting this message of, solidarity isn't charity. It's, it's building union power. It's building working class power. And if we don't, stick together, they're gonna eat us up. It's if they're able to go after the part-time, this is what happened at last time. Once they succeeded at going after the part-timers, they went after the full-timers, and you ended up with 22-4 and other things like that.
Exactly. If the company could, they would have every contract passed by 51%. All they want to do is make just over half the people happy. Well, you got to tell it, as a driver, you should look at it and say, what if they flip the script here and only start taking care of part-timers? Solidarity works all the way around. We all have to stand together.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And that's, your friends from the Steelworkers Union or the United Auto Workers Union that came out to your picket lines, I think see that. And that it's not just even within UPS. I think all workers need to stick together. I want to pivot back, though. We talked about Sean O'Brien and Fred Zuckerman and the Oz Slate's victory. But then coming after that, you had an election in Local 90. How did it happen that, all the stuff, 2018, all the things you were talking about were happening on a national level, but they were happening in each local union has its own story, as does Local 90. But it was happening in Local 90. Can you tell us the story there a little bit from 2018 to Tanner Fischer becoming president of Local 90?
Yeah, so around 2020, a lot of our militants that have been around for quite a while, they kind of retired out just with the pandemic. They had the years and they didn't want to risk it. So I go to TDU in 2021, and before we always kind of had a crew. 2021, it's just me, and I'm kind of beat down at that point. I'm like, this is, I feel like almost like a one-man army. This kind of sucks. I met some really good people there. Kind of like, no, you can, like start building a coalition locally, get a little network. So that's kind of what I came back and did. And it started, just a Sunday afternoon, me and two other stewards just kind of talking about what we could do to change the union. And then it grows. And it was like 6 people. And then our principal officer, she actually ended up retiring. She's a great principal officer, incredibly overworked. I don't think she had the support she needed here locally, but she ended up retiring, and things really started kind of going downhill at the local. And then we keep having meetings, and we have 12 people there. And eventually we had like 25 people in a room here, and we're like, oh my God, we have like a movement here of people that can, go get something done. And we kind of figured out that someone's got to run, and we got to try to take over a local. And after, someone's got to do something. Well, we kind of realized that we are someone, and we are the ones that need to do something. So we reached out to TDU, and we started kind of getting some support from them. And we started really just hitting the streets and doing one-on-ones in front of the UPS building, just talking to people, doing some leafleting. We'd go out to Pepsi, all the other, we didn't even know what shops Local 90 had truly. We had a rough idea, but we didn't even know really every business in it. So I remember I was going out to bus yards trying to find a very specific Durham busing. And I'm walking into bus yards, kind of just, I don't know, you can call it trespassing. I don't know what you want to call it, but I'm just walking around in some of these bus yards, and like, oh, are you guys Teamsters? No, I'm not a Teamster. Okay, we'll write that down. We'll save that for later, because maybe someday you will be. Maybe not right now, but just kind of aimlessly trying to find all of our shops. And eventually we did find, the vast majority of them. And we started talking to people, trying to build a wider coalition. We got some Aramark guys involved. And then we, really hit the ground running once we announced candidacy. And we, as the election progressed, we had we ended up having to do a rerun, which was pretty awful. We I had it set up, so I took all my vacation time at right around the election. And vacation time at UPS is gold. You said it at the beginning you said it, and I had to like trade weeks and do a bunch of stuff to try to get the week I had. And we did that. We spent all of our money on our mailers, and then we had to do a rerun because they didn't put postage on the return ballots. So, and we actually ran a really good campaign. Like, as soon as we realized that, I didn't think they were going to do a rerun. So we ran like a stamp campaign of getting stamps to every worker, which really, it was a good.
So the rerun was based on the stamps, or?
Yeah. The stamps weren't on the ballots. So our thing was like, okay, cool, we can organize around this. I know that we have the capacity to go get everyone in the local a stamp, and I know the local doesn't. So we bought like, $600 in stamps, and we just started trying to get stamps out to everyone we can. And then, by the time we get done with that, they announced that we're gonna have a rerun. So no idea how that one would have gone, but at this point we are mostly out of money and definitely out of vacation. So the rest of the election was me calling in and trying to not get fired at the very end, and just taking any layoff days I could, which there wasn't very many at that point. But I we had the second election. We did a bunch of phone banking, a bunch of text banking, and we ended up winning a little bit more than 3-1 with about a 50% turnout, which is huge for a union election.
That's very impressive. So let me pivot back though. So obviously having a rerun election when you're out of vacation time and money, when the incumbents have both usually, can be difficult, and I've experienced that too when I was with the Teamsters. But could you talk a little bit about the discussions? What were workers, not just at UPS, but even people at Pepsi, who probably are other places that you represent. What were they saying to you? What kind of questions did they have for you? And why did they support your slate, or why didn't they? Why did they support the 3-1, the ones that didn't? So how did that election really look?
Yeah, so I guess part of the reason we ran, getting calls back from the hall was always difficult. Just really getting someone to answer was difficult. Getting grievances heard in a timely manner was difficult. We had a massive backlog, and every time we go to a different shop, the conversation was similar. Oh yeah, we had this contract. It's been, we're 8 months past expiration and nothing's been done yet, and we're barely having meetings, or different things like that, where it's like things just weren't getting done in a timely manner, or done very well, or done at all. And that just kind of kept on happening everywhere we went. We definitely struggled with Pepsi a little bit. That was one of our tougher places to try to win votes at. I think there's a lot of fear that things will get worse. And, and just having seen some of their contracts and, like 35-cent raises and that sort of thing, just trying to convince them that it really can't get much worse. I mean, you guys, we have to fight somewhere, and a lot of these wages are just substandard. But I guess some of the questions for us was like, you guys only care about UPS. That was one of the big ones, because we were a UPS heavy slate. I mean, that's where a lot of us were from, and that's where it's like a battle every day on the shop floor there. So I think that's why we were such a militant group. So, a lot of the questions were like, you guys would only care about UPS. And, some of the best answers to those questions were, someone's asking me this, and it's 4 a.m. and it's raining, and I'm standing in a driveway at Pepsi. And it's like, I can promise you right now, if I only cared about UPS, there's no way I'd be here in the rain at 4 a.m. having to drive in, 3 hours at UPS, so some of the questions kind of answered themselves. And I'm not sure which votes we won there, if we did win any votes, but I certainly hope we did. And I hope since the election, they've been happy with what we've done so far.
Okay. So, some of the issue is, so you were putting out a fighting program that we're willing to fight the boss, that we're going to stand up and push back. But a lot of it was even the people that aren't willing to fight weren't even willing to defend the rights that you already have under the contract. They weren't willing to come out and meet the members and even protect what they already had. Well, let me ask you, though, about not just Pepsi, but any of the others as well. So your strength was UPS. That's your slate. Was there, and people had there was a cynicism amongst at least some of the workers initially as you campaigned. So now that you've been in office for a little while, anyways, what have you done at Pepsi or other places to try, non-UPS places, to show a new day in Local 90?
Yeah, one of our key early supporters was Aramark. And Aramark had an open agreement at the time. We went and we signed, laundry's a little bit of a different industry, but we ended up signing the best Aramark agreement in the country by, that's what the IBT came out and said. They're used to like 25-cent raises and, pretty awful deals. They get like they're getting like $500 bonuses, that sort of thing. We ended up getting them like a $2, $1 with a $3,000 a year bonus. Their health insurance was frozen. We got them increased commissions on new sales. So we ended up kind of setting like the golden standard for what an Aramark contract could be. But we did that through mobilizing members, pissing off agitating members, but pissing them off, however you want to word it. But and then actually having a real strike threat against Aramark, which I don't think is, I don't know the last time that's happened. So, and that was a really good multi-union contract that we all kind of worked on together in the state of Iowa, and they ended up getting a pretty good deal. We're in the early stages of our Pepsi contract campaign as well. Their contract expires November 30th of this year. So we're working on it. We sent out a bunch of contract surveys, and after the Iowa State Fair, which is like, I don't know, it might as well be a holiday in Iowa. It's a pretty big deal here. Immediately after the fair, we'll begin all of our contract meetings and probably start negotiations in September.
Okay. So let me ask you also, though, about one of the things that affected our whole labor movement is the number of non-union people that exist amongst the working class. That there's we went from I don't know, high 30%, 38%, something like that density at the peak, and I don't know, in the private sector we're under 10% for sure. I don't know, probably 6 or 7% now. And so how do you approach that, or have you, I know you're new in office, have you done anything to try to bring new members into the union or organize the unorganized?
Yeah, when we were running our campaign, we're in the UPS parking lot. One of the things we realized that I actually didn't know is our customer counter was not in the union. So they're the people who package up the boxes when you go drop them off at the very beginning of the UPS system. They're helping you tape it up and put a label on it, that sort of thing. And they weren't Teamsters, and they wanted to be Teamsters. So they got my commitment that, we win this election, I'll help you guys become Teamsters. Honestly, even if we lost, I still would have tried to help them become Teamsters. But we actually just got the letter of understanding this week. We're kind of cleaning some stuff up on it, but it looks like all 5 of the ladies that work there are about to get about $40,000 in additional pay and benefits.
All right. Yeah. All right. Congratulations to you and to them.
Yeah. They're going to go from paying about $90 a week for health insurance to not paying for health insurance.
Well, that's great. That's it's as it should be for everyone. But yes, absolutely. Great work.
And
great work.
I'm working on another organizing. We're a small local. Like it's, there's two full-time officers here, and we have a secretary as well. But so I'm a president, I'm a business agent, and really I'm kind of our organizer here too. So it's just, basically just put in more hours and we'll figure it out as we go. But I'm working on a pretty large 400-person bargaining unit right now. That gets the majority of my free time, and even beyond my free time, to be honest. But I'm super excited. We have a great organizing committee out there. It's majority women led. And they're doing amazing work out there. It's awesome. And hopefully we'll have some more news on that by the end of the year.
Okay, well, I hope to hear from that. I'm looking forward to that. So we'll invite you back to Fight Back Radio to talk about your new members. Well, let me ask you also. So Iowa is a right-to-work state, and for I think most of our Fight Back Radio listeners know what that is. But it's in other states like Illinois, where I live, there's a union security clause in the contracts that says everybody has to be a member of the union, or if not, pay a fee that's equal to or close to the union dues because they get all the benefits of being in the union. But there's states like probably half the states almost like Iowa, where you get all the benefits of being a union member, but you don't have to pay dues necessarily. And it goes back to this, it's like an anti-solidarity, what's in it for me kind of attitude, and you should work, whatever, trying to take away union power. But could you talk a little bit, Tanner, about what it's like to be in a right-to-work state and how you deal with that, how you convince people that hey, you should be you should sign up and be a member of the union, or what you're doing along those lines?
Yeah, so internal organizing is key in a right-to-work state. Really, the reason for right-to-work, it's to drain union resources. But if you only look at it that way, you're only going to be pissed off about it forever. So the right way to look at it is we have to go out and see our members all the time, and that's a good thing. It's not a good thing that right-to-work exists, but going out and seeing your members, staying engaged with them, that's not a bad thing. So if you're doing that, it's a lot easier to convince people to sign up. And I do think that some of the best union members are right-to-work members because they choose to be in the union 100%. So it's all their choice. Nothing forces them to do it, and the vast majority still join.
Okay, so and so when you go out, what's your pitch? So you run into some guy. I've been here 5 years. I've never joined the union. I like having a couple extra dollars in my pocket. What would you tell me?
You like to have a couple extra dollars in your pocket. We can get you a lot more than a couple extra dollars in your pocket come contract time, but we need to all stand together to get you paid more and to get you better benefits. I mean, don't you want to have a voice in your working conditions and in your contract? Your membership gets you the right to vote in your contract. Your membership gets you the right to vote in your local elections, choose your local officials, national leaders. It gets you a bunch of benefits through the Teamsters. We have a pretty good deal for bus drivers on the IBT website for like a free college thing too. That's offered on there. So I'll point people that way as well sometimes. But just kind of stuff like that. And really, it's like, don't you want to have a say in what goes on?
So it's all about creating a working class, unity, and that's where our power is. I want to, along those lines, talk to you a little bit too. It's like they try to divide us so many ways, and we've talked a little bit about part-time and full-time, and the right to work stuff, I guess, is part of that too. But they also try to divide people, by treating women badly, and are having divisions by race. or nationality. Can you talk a little bit about your view or your vision for Teamsters and unity, and how you deal with issues of racism on the job, or sexism, or homophobia, or whatever, those kind of divisions?
Yeah, I mean, just like there can't be two tiers of wages, there can't be two tiers of Teamsters. I mean, we are all brothers and sisters. You fight with your brothers and sisters sometimes, but you got to stand together. And treating women as less, or treating minorities as less, or homophobia, or any of that stuff, it just doesn't work. It's a tool that the rich and powerful use to divide workers. I don't think the rich and powerful really care about homophobia or racism or sexism, but they know it's a great way to drive a wedge between groups of workers, so they can't stand together, or they won't stand together to fight for better things. It's the same thing they're trying to do with part-timers right now. They're trying to drive that wedge where, full-timers are taken care of, so who cares about the part-time? I mean, it's the same exact thing. It's just a different wedge. It's the same reason why they try to create little culture wars, because they don't want to have a class war.
Yeah, and that's maybe what we need. Well, we're running out of time, Tanner, and I appreciate you. I know you're busy. You're in a contract campaign, and so thank you so much for spending some time with us. Before we leave, I do want to give you an opportunity, if there's anything that we didn't cover here that you would like to tell our Fight Back Radio listeners, or anything else that anything you want to say at this point, to be the appropriate time.
Yeah, if you guys see Teamsters on strike August 1st, make sure you come out to the picket lines and assist us. If you're ever by Des Moines, you see us on a practice picket before then, please come out. Organize the unorganized, help the working class. Kind of all I got right now, Richard.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being our guest, and all of our listeners. It's so important. Support the Teamsters at UPS. Support workers anywhere. If you see a picket line, if you got a minute, pull over, walk around with them. It means the world to somebody that's out on strike or in a fight with their boss, to have people show up like that. If you got a little more time, buy some coffee or donuts, or maybe even something healthy. There's lots of donuts on picket lines, I've noticed. It does mean a lot, and we only win when we stand together. I mean, they got all the money, the power, and the wealth, but we have ourselves, each other, and we do all the work that creates all that power, money, and wealth. So support the Teamsters. So thank you so much, Tanner, for being on Fight Back Radio.
Thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure.
So Tanner Fischer, a leader at UPS, and as I said in the intro, somebody that you're going to be hearing more of, I believe, in the future. Certainly a leader that the Teamsters can be proud of, which stands out from its most recent past. So thank you, Tanner, for that great explanation of what's going on in the fight within the Teamsters and with UPS. So as I mentioned in the intro, there's our friends at Freedom Road Socialist Organization are doing a forum next weekend. I think it'll be on the 16th of July. And I encourage everybody to check that out. We'll put that in the show notes, and it'll be a good follow-up to what you just heard. Also, I want to encourage people to, you're our voice of getting the word out about Fight Back Radio. Tell a friend about Fight Back Radio. Retweet, send an email, whatever you do, let people know about this. Another thing I want to encourage people to do is, wherever you listen, Spotify or whatever, some of them, they'll have stars. Give us a 5-star rating. That helps people find us. And so it's a thumbs up or whatever it is. If you write a review, even if it's a short one, those are things that'll help people find us. And so I want to encourage people to do that. If you want to reach us or give us feedback on what we're doing here, we always appreciate that. You can reach us at richard.fightbackradio@gmail.com. So I want to thank our entire production team: Vince Olson, Shane Tremley, Natalie Pranis, and Dodd McColgan. And saying it for the entire team, until next time, all power to the people. Don't put that in afterwards. Okay.
When it rains, it pours. If it can go wrong,
I'm
it all.
telling you. I'm glad you're a nice guy. Okay. So